It's Spoilerin time, folks. This is our, I don't want to say it's our favorite, but really it's kind of our favorite. So it's a great time where we talk about the shows we watch. Cordkillers, our other show, is great for talking about how to watch them. It's essential. Don't get me wrong. We love every single moment of that. But man, it's so fun to watch the shows and talk about them. And this week, we are going to talk about Extras, the Jonathan Ross episode, episode 6 of season 2, The Righteous Gemstones, season 1, episode 6, and Preacher, the penultimate episode, episode 9 of season 4. I'm Tom Merritt, and with me is my pal, Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, so this is normally the part where we check in on the long-running standings of the movie draft. However, I guess this time we'll just give a general announcement that we're gearing up for the winter movie draft. It'll be happening right after all this. There we go. We got just a taste of that music. Yeah, so as soon as we wrap this up, we'll be starting up the winter movie draft. Shocking news, Justin Robert Young publicly admits that he's bad at the game and has no chance of winning, so he's running away like a scared little mouse.
Oh my! Really? No, Justin Roberts. Like he just can't face the fact that Team Sword and Laser won the summer.
You know what? I have a recording of him. He called and left me a voicemail message. Deep. Hey Brian, it's me, your co-host Justin Robert Young. I just realized I'm so bad at this game and I'm so scared that I'm not even going to compete this time. I'll send someone else. Don't worry about me, your old pal Gerbs. I'll just be cowering in the corner, listening to your trash talk for the next 4 months. I swear it won't get my goat eventually. Beep.
Wow.
Justin Robert Young was unavoidably unable to come to the movie draft.
Wrong.
That's right. He's scared.
So we should run down the slate of all the movies on the winter movie draft and remind everybody that if you don't tune in live, you can participate for the next, 48 hours after we do this?
Probably about a week. Probably less than
about a week. You go to what?
draft.diamondclub.tv/form, I believe is the URL. If it's up, if you can still enter in the chat realm league, the alternate league, the backwards first or last with $100. But join along with
and a reminder that the way you play from home is we are going to bet with $100 of fake game dollars, and we will sort of set all the prices based on our negotiations with each other. You guys are going to play a separate parallel game where you're going to figure out which movies we overbid on, which ones are cost too much money, and you're going to spend based on the prices we set your own $100, and you'll compete against the rest of the chat realm league.
That is right, folks. So check it out, draft.diamondclub.tv. And if you're watching live, follow along right after Spoilerin time to see the draft live. It'll also come to your feeds as well. Let's get on with Preacher. And I know this is the second to last episode, but it was very, very, very good. It was a very good feeling to be like, all right, we're moving towards the end. We've got everybody in place. I really enjoyed this episode. What about you, Brian?
It was almost great. And in any other series, I would say it was great, but we've seen some really great episodes of Preacher. We are seeing forces realign themselves. I forget who the second in command to Hair Star, what her name is, but we see her.
Julianne Emery is the actor's name, but I could never remember her character name.
Like Frauenfluffer or something. I forget what it is. But we're seeing. It was so wild. My friend Andrew Heaton is around, and so I'm watching this episode of Preacher, and he walks in just in time to see Cassidy existing only as not even a mid-torso, just an upper torso and viscera everywhere. And I'm like, oh, he's a vampire, so it's no big deal. And he's like, who's that? I'm like, oh, it's God. And they're like, what are they doing? Or no, it's Cassidy. And they're like, what are they talking about? He's like, well, God wanted him to betray his friend Cassidy. And you're like, who's Cassidy? And you're like, Cassidy, oh, you got Genesis. What's that? And then all of a sudden it cuts over to a scene where I'm like, that's Jesus Christ. That's Hitler. Hitler used to be a resident of hell. Now he's taken over hell. And then, like, the more of these things I had to say out loud, the more I realized, number one, how wonderfully absurd this show has made me comfortable going. And also, I felt the need to go back and show Andrew the first 4 minutes of the very first pilot episode and how grounded the early episodes of Preacher felt. And that's part of why I'm kind of thrilled that they're wrapping it up, because they have followed a fairly linear path of increased insanity, and there's only so far you could go with that before you lose all connection, emotional connection to anything. So I'm very thankful for as far as they've taken me. I'm glad they're wrapping it all up. Looks to me like maybe the only bad guys left are Hairstar and God.
Well, I think okay, I want to say two things to get them out of the way. Didn't love the situation where God dares Tulip to last 60 seconds without trying to kill him because, she's going to fail. And it was just, I was like, you're not going to surprise me, and you didn't. Oh, also didn't love the bit where Cassidy said, I held out. Oh, but
I said no until I said yes.
Then I didn't. Yeah. I was like, it seems like a cheat. Those two things aside, the rest of this episode, what I really enjoyed is that on paper, like you're saying, when you describe it, you're like, wait, Hitler is trying to talk Jesus into rebelling against God. Yeah, that scans. Like, of course, if that were to be a thing, that's how it would go down, right? I loved the take of Jesus having issues with getting parental approval from his dad and being like, come on, man, look at my moves. You could accept me. Like, having that father-son dynamic is brilliant. And I there's so many, too many to count of those issues where you take a common criticism of religion, like, well, why does God just test you blindly? And they make it a plot point, right? And we are getting to see Preacher have his faith seriously tested, not kind of tested, not like, well, I'm going to say that I still trust in you, God, and that's good enough. And God going, yeah, no, that's good enough. But also I'm going to tear out your eye now. You are Job. And I just love it. I love where we're winding up, where it's taking some of these metaphorical issues that have sort of been floating above the series and bringing them right into the center of the plot.
I will say that we've finally gotten to the point. Every time they sort of indicate that they portrayed God as having a midlife crisis, of him being a derelict attendant to his duties. They've portrayed him as short-sighted and rude and thoughtless and crass and mean. But in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, but you're not really going to make God the bad guy, are you? This was the first episode that I'm like, man, there ain't much time left, and it really looks like you guys are trying to straight up make God the bad guy. And
he's the Old Testament God. He's an angry God. He's a jealous God. Like, he is just following the script. And you know who's might end up fighting on the side of the humans to redeem them? I don't know, maybe Jesus. But he's being tempted by Hitler right now, so that's kind of confusing him. Like, it all scans.
Also, and I love those moments, the confusion that I feel in my heart when I'm like, man, Hitler's got a point. Oh, what did I just think?
Yeah, man, I hope Hitler gets Jesus to rebel against God. Did I really just think that? Yeah.
I will say, I think I'm with you. Cassidy's story, kind of a dud. Tulip's story, kind of a dud. Jesse's story, kind of on hold. Hairstar, weirdly, is the one that I enjoyed the most because he's loving it. He thinks he's got it all under control until he realizes that, everybody has the wrong mission statement. I love the IT tech support scene.
Yeah, that was good.
So good. Shoot, there was another moment. Lingering thread that is not only pointless in this episode, but has been pointless for half a dozen episodes that better pay off. Why is Eugene in this story at all? The rock star thing, nothing about Eugene said that he wanted to be a rock star, but they introduced that thread recently and followed it up with him street performing, then getting run over by a car and being in prison for, I don't understand any of that. And it's not like Preacher to leave things dangling without a payoff. For the life of me, I can't figure out what the payoff is going to be.
I'm so curious to find out because, they thought I ate Preacher, but they didn't find him in my poop was, sort of funny in the abstract. But I'm like, what? Really? No, that's why no, like, where are we going with this? So yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just going to wake up in hell. I might be disappointed.
Well, God, I hope not, especially because Eugene spent 3 seasons as the moral center of the show, and then they threw that away.
Hold on. Beatmaster says it's all fan service.
Oh, is it? They're just wedging in all the things that, I would really hate for that to be the case. That would be a real bummer.
Mm-hmm. He had a rock star story for a long while in the comics, according to Beatmaster.
I don't want to hear that. I'd be really disappointed if that was the case.
Well, I'm still holding out that the TV show will put it to good use in the final episode.
Yeah, dude. By the way, the guy playing God, best we've seen of him. He's doing good.
Oh, yeah.
I like
amazing.
the fact that they're portraying God as this. They dress him in a very different way. He's got that authority, that menace. He looks like a mob boss, basically.
Right.
There's something there. I don't know. Still enjoying it. Also, weird for me to say, really excited to see it all just wrapped on up. Well done, Preacher. You had 3 seasons of the best show on television and a 4th season that gave me closure, is what I want to say next week.
All right, let's talk about the Righteous Gemstones, where we got the episode we were hoping for. And honestly, we got the moment that I've been hoping for after last week, which was to see the daughter take the place of the mother. Yeah, and
what I loved about this episode was it, justified last week's episode. I was not a fan of the harsh, suddenly we're just going to go back to the 1980s just for a vignette, standalone story of why Eli has beef with baby, I want to say Baby Brent, that's not his name, whatever his name is.
Baby Billy.
But that was so vital to get us to that moment that we had this time. And even though, her clogging could be punched up a bit, like she's very much her mother's daughter. And I like that Eli came in and saw her at her peak, because I think they've done a good job of saying, like, Eli really refuses to acknowledge what's great about his only daughter.
Yeah. And calling her Judy Lee, to kind of emphasize that, she is the daughter. And I couldn't tell. And what I love about this show is I don't even think it matters what it looks like, but I couldn't tell if Eli was looking at it as, well, I still don't trust baby Billy, but gosh darn it, if he wasn't right, Judy's got talent. Or if he was looking as like, yeah, of course she has talent, but that's not what we want right now. And what am I going to have to do to stop this crap? It could be either or both of those.
He represented his position as neither of those. He represented it as,
I know,
you don't have talent and you're being manipulated, which maybe that's how he feels as well.
Well, I think it's as likely that he actually felt that way and now he's being his mind is being changed, as it is that he doesn't really want her to have talent, because that's too complicated and too much to deal with and reminds him of his wife too much. And so now he will just fly in the face of that and say, that was a crap performance. You aren't any good. Forget what baby Billy's saying. He's lying to you.
So separately, I gotta give a deep level of appreciation to the fact that they are not drawing out this whole extortion scheme too long, the blackmail stuff. They are instead, like, I like that they full on wrapped it up and they introduced a new narrative, which is getting ready for the heist. And I like that there's now friction between Gideon and his, I don't know, what's the name of his friend?
The stuntman guy?
Yeah.
I don't know his name
But
either.
I like that the stuntman is showing up and doing that. Oh, I'm
Scotty?
Here for
Is it Scotty?
Scotty, that's Scotty. What it is, yeah. I like that we're done with that after 6 episodes and we're now watching the beginning of a new chess game. And yes, maybe something will happen that involves that previous chess game, but that chess game is full on over. I like that a lot.
We usually, I think what happens is they're like, yeah, but we have such a great Gideon Scotty, triangle going on with the family and it's making things complicated. We can't lose it. And they would just drag it out. But instead they're like, no, we aren't going to drag out the blackmail. We'll wrap that up. We'll show that Amber Gemstone doesn't believe those are car pranks, but is just willing to nod her head and smile if that's what it takes for now. And like you say, create something new to the point where it's not just something new in that it's now a heist instead of blackmail. It's also Scotty inserting himself into it because he doesn't trust that Gideon isn't going over to the gemstone side again and showing up at the gate saying, hey, I'm a buddy of Gideon's, which is true. He is.
I like my complicated feelings about Gideon, where, you know, he's a bag of garbage for what he was doing to his dad and his family and you know, his whole lifestyle or whatever. But I'm really enjoying him kind of being reseduced to the joys of being part of a loving family. And I'm glad for this brief moment to see them as a loving family. And I'm glad for, you know, the unrelenting portrayal of Scotty as a total D-bag. It gets
a little cartoony for me at points when they were with the 10th thing, but at the same time, I want him to be unforgivable. I think that is important for Scotty to have no sympathy. Don't leave me any empathy for him.
Yeah. And you know, I'm sure there'll be an overcorrection, and I'm sure at some point that Gideon's dad will, you know, do something that I'll perceive as irredeemable, but that's the joy of the show. Separate thing, this is a testament to the writing of this show, because you have the main arc of obviously Baby Billy is seducing Gemstone's daughter to you know, for his own ends and all that stuff, and she genuinely is nervous about all that stuff. But the beauty of the Righteous Gemstones is they decide that dark moment, that I don't know if I can do this, is the perfect time to decide that she wants to spank her boyfriend and that she needs to get drilled immediately in order to relieve tension or whatever. It's such a break. I mean, it's so good. The pattern interruptions are delightful on this show.
No, it's fantastic. And as I keep saying, the pattern interruptions feel real. They feel like, if you've ever been around, not that we've all been around mega churches, but if you've ever been around people who are, you know, trying to be
high
righteous,
pressure performers,
the ways they feel like the ways the gemstones fail, exaggerated. Obviously, the gemstones are, you know, cartoonishly exaggerated, but yeah, it's rooted in real human frailty. I think that's
Beatmaster 80 in the chat is
positives.
pointing out that the throwing of the "We Did It" tokens into the pond was sad. I think it's not only sad, but it's also significant, because everybody threw theirs except for one person who kind of just dropped it right in front of them, which tells me almost certainly that is going to show up later. Somebody's going to go back and fish that up.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. That is Chekhov's "We Did It" token. All right. Anything else on Righteous Gemstones?
Oh, no, I did enjoy the showing of I enjoyed the reprise of Misbehaving, and I enjoyed seeing the quote unquote footage of them as children having done it. And I enjoyed
the background. That was great.
Whatever it meant to Eli Gemstone as he was watching his daughter performing that with Baby Billy. I enjoyed the way it was portrayed in that complicated, emotional way.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about the finale of Extras. There is a Christmas episode, and we will be watching that and talking about it next week. But the final season 2 episode with Jonathan Ross, where our hero shows up on the Jonathan Ross chat show and makes friends with Jonathan Ross, who says, "Yeah, I can introduce you to Bob De Niro. Not a problem. I'll make it happen." And then we get some lovely montages of Jonathan Ross and Ricky Gervais playfully having fun as friends as he continually ignores Maggie, because now he's got these high-profile friends that he's running with. And it looks like we're just going to get a sort of like he's leaving Maggie behind because Maggie's still an extra. You know, she doesn't have the cachet. And then, of course, he decides... We have this great classic Extras moment where a woman pushily makes him agree to visit her son in the hospital, and all the uncomfortableness around that attends. But then that becomes a device for him to decide to choose Maggie over Bob De Niro. How did you feel about this episode as a whole, and particularly about his decision to forego meeting with Robert De Niro in order to hang out with Maggie?
Let's work backward. Let's start with that part. The Robert De Niro decision, I felt like was a bit hollow because none of us believed that meeting was going to happen, including him. So or especially him, given the actions of his manager, Stephen Merchant. So as a result, for him to not go to the meeting that he knew was not actually going to happen, kind of, okay.
Becomes an easier choice.
They spend the majority of the episode, yet again, making me regret liking Ricky Gervais's character. And then he makes the shallow decision to not go see the fake, obviously not going to happen meeting with Robert De Niro. So as a result, there's no weight to it when he shows up with Maggie. And yet, it was also sweet. I really liked the way it ended. And I like that they doubled down on the storybook ending by getting a phone call, even though he ghosted on the interview with Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro is so enchanted with the nudie pen that he decides to hang out and go have a pint with Stephen Merchant, and they invite, him and Maggie to come on down. And then even then they do the fake out where he's like, yeah, let's bail on this cancer kid. And they're like, just kidding. And then they play the game of Operation, and then they throw in, I mean, it's almost like they knew that they weren't getting a third season. They're like, so anyway, in the future, we obviously get married and live happily ever after, don't we? Hey, that's the end of this season.
No. Oh, that's interesting. I took that ending scene as the typical friends who aren't lovers conversation, as sealing that these two are true friends and they will remain true friends. Not that they will get married ever, but that's the conversation that you have with your opposite sex partner of like, if we end up not meeting anyone. I mean, I had that conversation in the 90s with a friend of mine. Like, all right, if we're 30 or 40, I can't remember how old we said we would be, we'll just move in together so we can keep each other company.
Sure. I totally believe it's a real.
That was like saying, okay, these two are going to stay friends. Is that what you mean though? Maybe that's
what I mean. Okay. Yes, that is a real conversation that real people have with real friendships that they anchor with each other. It's also the thing you say at the end of a 2-season run when you're not sure you're going to get a third season.
I think you're thinking that because you know it's the end of a 2-season run and you're looking for it. I think it's a little bit of a filter.
Yeah, certainly, but it's a very effective filter. I mean, that's what you would
I'm
say
just saying,
if you wanted to provide.
No, it was the end of a season 2, and if they think they're getting a third season, I still think they write all those lines.
Sure, yes, but I would say when you write those lines, you write them saying those are good lines because they'll work whether we get a third season or not. Like that part factors in.
I don't know. That takes something away from the ending if I believe that. I like to believe that this was just Ricky finally realizing, you know what, I need to keep Maggie around. She's good people. And even if I'm going to be hanging out with Robert De Niro and Jonathan Ross, I want Maggie along for the ride. Because he also made a point of inviting her to come hang out with Robert De Niro.
I did not perceive any genuine, and again, this is a piece of fiction that we're just speculating on.
And we've got different perspectives.
I perceived none of that genuineness. I completely perceived it as a mercenary wrap up and a let's tie a bow around it redemption arc in the last 10 minutes of a full season of watching Ricky Gervais I originally liked become less and less likable, and then at the end just throw that in there just in case this is our last episode.
We will, of course, get more on these characters in the Christmas special, which we'll talk about next week. I'm not sure how much this will change, but it'll be interesting. It's kind of a movie length version of Extras. I wonder if they wanted to make an Extras movie, couldn't, so decided convince BBC to do a Christmas special. That would make sense to me. Anything else on Extras?
No, man, really enjoying it. I'm glad we did our side journey. After this, we go to Larry Sanders.
Larry Sanders.
Yeah, exactly.
2 a week.
That's going to be interesting. Yes, they're half-hour shows, so we're going to watch 2 a week. So we have more to talk about, and it's one of those long-running shows of the 90s. They did longer seasons back there, so we'll be able to have lots of Larry Sanders Show, even if we're doing 2 episodes a week. But that's not next week. Next week is the Christmas special. Also, The Good Place coming back, so we'll be watching that as well. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for supporting us. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Spoil you then.
Love you guys.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.